Grow!
Eric Senes? Is that you?
Grow!
How'd you get out of your box?
Grow!
Eric Senes, I told you, don't summon me on a weeknight.
To hell with your terms! You were supposed to start your YouTube channel months ago!
You know I'm writing like 5 books right now, prepping for our podcast, right?
Excuses! I want it, the people want it, and you're overdue!
Okay, fine, Eric Senes, I'll make a video. But what's it gonna be about?
Dragons!
Really? Dragons? Don't you think that's a bit, overplayed?
Your mom's overplayed!
Fine. Let's do this!
The Epic of Dreams.
Have you ever crossed swords with a true dragon? A king of beasts? A leviathan? Or perhaps instead you have found yourself in the presence of a Mushu, a lying lookalike. Sup, nerds? I am Drew Cochran, and this is my associate, Eroxenes. Today we will look upon the face of pride and tread the paths our forefathers walked centuries ago. Today we will learn about true dragons, how to roleplay true dragon energy in our RPGs, how to employ dragons in our warfare scenes, and how to roleplay alongside dragons as a player. My friends, we live in a day and age where spectacle has reigned above all things yet again. An age of entertainment. Perhaps the hobby of role-playing games is inside of that common denominator. In today's day and age, nuance and mythology have all been thrown out for power fantasies. So our anime-addled teenagers can just, and win the day without consequence. This will do no good for anyone. No good. And this is why we're talking about dragons. Think about the last time you have played in a game, be it Dungeons & Dragons, The Burning Wheel, or some such other indie thing. Think about your experience with said dragon. Was it memorable? Was it terrifying? Was it catastrophic? All of these words must be applicable to your experience with the dragon. If it's not, then you didn't actually have a dragon, but instead a Mushu. And as I said before, nobody likes a lion lookalike. Now we're going to talk about the mindset of a dragon. What it means to be a true dragon and play them in your role-playing games. So you can bring to the table something memorable and valuable to your players. So that your saga will be a living epic of dreams. Regardless of whatever game you're playing. Even if it's, 5th edition. Or the best dang role-playing game ever. Dragons. 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 The key to playing a dragon inside of your role-playing game is understanding the reptilian brain. Not just in the psychological sense, but also the actual biological brain of a lizard. In order to provide context to all of this, I'm going to refer to the best book ever to give us what it means to be a dragon, what the myth is itself, where it originates from. This is the core, a pretty freaking great example of a core trope from which the rest of the mythos of especially the Western dragon comes from. We will also talk about the Eastern core myths and tropes that make that a thing, but we're going to just settle ourselves so we can define our freaking terms. Come with me to the book of Job. Open your Bibles to Job chapter 41, verse 1. Can you draw out Leviathan with a hook, or snare his tongue with a line which you lower? Can you put a reed through his nose, or pierce his jaw with a hook? Will he make supplications to you? Will he speak softly to you? Will he make a covenant with you? Will you take him as a servant forever? Or will you play with him as a bird, or leash him for your maidens? Will your companions make a banquet of him? Will they apportion him among the merchants? Can you fill his skin with harpoons, or his head with fishing spears? Lay your hand on him. Remember the battle. Never do it again. Indeed, any hope of overcoming him is false. Shall one not be overwhelmed at the sight of him? No one is so fierce that he would dare stir him up. Who then is able to stand against me? Who has preceded me that I should pay him? Everything under heaven is mine. I will not conceal his limbs, his mighty power, or his graceful proportions. Who can remove his outer coat? Who can approach him with a double bridle? Who can open the doors of his face, with his terrible teeth all around? His rows of scales are his pride, shut up tightly as with a seal. One is so near another that no air can come between them. They are joined one to another. They stick together and cannot be parted. His sneezings flash forth light. His eyes are like the eyelids of morning. Out of his mouth go burning lights. Sparks of fire shoot out. Smoke goes out of his nostrils, as from a boiling pot and burning rushes. His breath kindles coals, and a flame goes out of his mouth. Strength dwells in his neck, and sorrow dances before him. The folds of his flesh are joined together. They are firm on him and cannot be moved. His heart is as hard as stone, even as hard as the lower millstone. When he raises himself up, the mighty are afraid. Because of his crashings, they are beside themselves. Though the sword reaches him, it cannot avail, nor does spear, dart, or javelin. He regards iron as straw, and bronze as rotten wood. The arrow cannot make him flee. Sling stones become stubble to him. Darts are regarded as straw. He laughs at the threat of javelins. His undersides are like sharp pot shards. He spreads pointed marks in the mire. He makes the deep boil like a pot. He makes the sea like a pot of ointment. He leaves a shining wake behind him. One would think the deep had white hair. On earth there is nothing like him, which is made without fear. He beholds every high thing. He is king over all children of pride. Preach! So yeah, inside of your games, you want to emulate that. Themes from the text of Job reveal to us several things. 1. Leviathan is a dragon, breathes fire, serpent, lives in the ocean, sometimes in the swamps, and he's a heavy son of a bitch. You can't just go towards the Leviathan, be like, hey bud, gonna kill ya. Doesn't happen. From this text, we find several recurring themes. One is pride. The dragon itself is an archetype of pride that is magnified and powerful. The Leviathan is a beast that lives in eternal strength. It has no weaknesses. It doesn't even have emotions that connotate weakness. It is the mythological type of the ego. It is only concerned with itself. It is the apex predator on land, sea, and air. It does not need anything. But when it wants something, it will always take it and always get it. Thus, the only true emotion to ever be displayed by a dragon in context to mortals is annoyance. And not simply annoyance, but the annoyance of a demigod. The annoyance of a demigod. Let that sink in for a second. Imagine there were these monkey people, and they were like, hey, let's get 20 of us and attack this demigod. The demigod would have no issue just, one slice of his hand, cutting them in half, especially if we're, Kung Fu Xianxia campaign. However, because the demigod has everything he needs, he doesn't need water, he doesn't need food, he doesn't need women, he doesn't need gold, he doesn't need crap. Because he has all of that, right? He has everything that he ever wants or needs because he's powerful. He's super freaking powerful. He doesn't have any weaknesses. But then these little puny monkey people come up to him and are all like, hey, we want your stuff and we think we can take it and we have humanity. Yeah, that'd be super annoying if you had to deal with that every week, every 2 weeks. It's the hubris of man that incites Leviathan's wrath. If humans left the Leviathan alone, he would, probably leave them alone. The only thing that is not analogous inside of the demigod to dragon analogy is that, one, dragons are natural. They are, they got meat. Meat! And they do have natural needs, but they will always meet them. They are also ancient reptiles. They never stop growing, and they can live to be exceedingly ancient. They can take their time. In the same way that an anaconda will eat once a month, so too will a true dragon be able to wait to gain whatever it is they desire, or those carnal things which they need to survive. A dragon is never in dire want. The dragon is the epitome apex predator. It is the pinnacle of natural power. The dragon is the most wealthy being on the face of whatever realm it resides in. So, when it is in want, it will take that which it wants without regard for the consequences. Because to the dragon, there is no consequence. Evolutionarily speaking, consider the tortoise, cousin of the dragon. Tortoises don't have any natural predators. They essentially won the evolution game, except we invented cars. So, sucks to be the tortoise if they live in America where there's a billion cars. But otherwise, tortoises have it made. They live to be 200, and if they want to get it on and make new tortoises, they do so at their leisure. They're herbivores, so they eat whatever. I might be mistaken on that. They might not actually be herbivores, but they're freaking turtle. They're a living fortress. Inside of the Job passage, we find that this is also true for the Leviathan. A dragon is content. It is the apex predator. It is perfected strength, and it knows it. Dragons are very ancient. They are wise, in spite of perhaps taking from biological cues. They may not have the same higher functionings that mammals may. They don't need it because they are dragons. Furthermore, as an archetype of pride and perfected strength and, a reptile, dragons do not have the feelings of empathy. They only know gratification, frustration, and contentedness. They do not know, they cannot fathom empathy. They are solitary creatures. They will eat each other. They will demolish anything in their path. Whereas us little humies will take things like empathy and hope and honor and humility, joy, peace, kindness, patience, gentleness, self-control. All of those things to a dragon, they are simply weakness. Because if you are a perfected being, you have no need of other beings. And dragons are nearly perfect. They will never admit it because they still need to eat food, still need to drink water. This is the only thing keeping dragons back from godhood. They are the natural apex. In their mindset, because they are this perfected being, any trace of codependency or need for other beings is weakness. And if you are weak, then you are imperfect. They are the same thing. Thus, when a party of adventurers comes by to try and take things, this imperfect, weak little squad of meat bags tries to take your gold or take your food or just interact with you in general. It's annoying and is full of hubris, especially when a dragon is of a certain measure of intelligence and they have a very articulated goal. They want something for themselves to magnify themselves. Is the only reason, the only real motivator that a true dragon would ever really have. They are greed, but first they are pride. They will never admit to being imperfect, for they are perfect. And this is where the concept of dragon energy comes from. You must bring this presence to the table. It is not friendly, it is not kind. To surmise the dragon energy, infinite potency, infinite confidence, infinite disregard, and patience. Dragons are never anxious. They are never insecure. They are never filled with fear. They don't even know what fear is. It is as the tortoise. Tortoise fears nothing. It is bold, and it does what it wants. It's like a honey badger with a shield on its back, times 50, and breathes fire. That's a dragon. From the more allegorical trope, we will find that dragons are also very cunning. They are also a natural archetype of the Satan. And because of this, they also have a tendency in the Western mythological sphere to embody hell itself and the will of the underrealm. Because of this, they are known to also delight in savagery and subjugation of humans into bondage. We see this in the Fairy Queen a bunch of times. We also see this in St. George, the cliche of a monster requiring tithes of young maidens to devour monthly or whatever, which I'm pretty sure came from the Minotaur first. I don't know.
What about Asian dragons?
In most Eastern cultures, dragons are revered instead of feared. And I would argue from an anthropological standpoint, most of this is because the culture of honor that pervades most Eastern cultures, it really shaped their worldview. Whereas in the West, I would venture to say that power was more important. However, everything that we've said about dragons, the observations still apply to Eastern dragons. The only thing that's different is that they are often viewed as messengers of heaven. Instead of going out to
Fight the Satan!
the East would recognize, hey, that's a dragon. Not gonna screw with that. And likewise, they don't screw with it. Also, inside of Eastern tropes, dragons are more conflated with water and sky, whereas in the Western tropes, dragons are more conflated with fire and poison. Inside of Chinese alchemy, most creatures are regarded as having a sentient spirit that thinks, and they transform over time as they age. Dragons are already the epitome of that transformation. Humans will try to become jinn by accomplishing 300 golden deeds and sinning not once. But there is a precedent, I believe, I could be wrong, that some things turn into dragons through morality. So in the Eastern trope, in addition to being the apex predator, the apex perfected bodily being, dragons are also the apex of morality. This is why they have Dragon Balls. This is why Shenron can bring people back from the dead. You got it? You get it? So they're different. While all of that is true, the modus operandi of the Eastern dragon, while they may be privy to the courts of heaven and mysteries of life and the secrets to immortality and wish-giving, Eastern dragons still have very much the same temperament as Western dragons. If they are annoyed by human hubris, while they are, instead of manifesting their own will, they are manifesting the will of heaven, they will very much smite, destroy, obliterate whatever is in its path. Freaking Wukong.
I was promised bloodshed. When is the, bloodshed?
Okay, fine. Okay, now we'll get to the good stuff.
Bloodshed!
Now that we know how to properly wield dragon energy in our role-playing games, we will discuss what it means to fight as a dragon and eat those pesky knights. Let's begin. A lot of what we just talked about directly translates over to how dragons approach martial combat. One thing that I absolutely despise in any role-playing game that I'm playing in or running, sometimes I do it myself because I'm an imperfect being, is when any natural creature fights without regard for self-preservation. Even though dragons are perfect beings, they are the natural demigod, the natural devil, the natural adversary. Hey, Jarvis, hit him with the meme. So that meme's on the internet and it's like making fun of medieval people, but the thing is they were pretty freaking woke. Dragons will act out of self-preservation because, first off, even though they in their arrogance will not really feel like anything could ever kill them, because that in itself would be an idea of hubris or fear or insecurity, which is very not dragon energy. They will act out of self-preservation because they don't want to spend a lot of time or energy wasting on literally ants. So this is why Smog, he doesn't go down into Lake Town. He doesn't, like so. He just flies. Because that's all he's got to do. He's just got to fly a little bit and breathe a little fire because that's natural to him. It's a sorceress intrinsic ability. And yeah, he has a good time. Except for, the whole bit when he dies. But he didn't see it coming because he's an archetype of pride and arrogance. Anyways, they will act conservatively. However, their conservative measures are still highly lethal to multiple creatures that are human-sized at once. Which brings me to the second point about running dragons in warfare. You gotta kill someone. And if me saying you gotta kill someone makes you feel bad, that means you gotta do it. Especially you. Because the whole point of this video is to help people understand and experience what interacting with a true dragon, to bring to life the memory of what our forefathers considered dragons that they fought against inside of prehistory and ancient history, and all of these myths where we see people interacting with dragons. Marco Polo, the Indians, the Unctebis, all of that stuff from Mesopotamia to the 1600s. This memory is prevalent across all of humanity. We want to give that memory justice so that our players can enter into true immersion. We want them to feel the fire of the dragon in front of them. We want them to be the fisherman, the harpooner that tried to wage war against the leviathan, who put their hand towards him in battle, and they remember the pain, and they never want to do it again. If we do not create these experiences and help create these memories inside of our players' minds, we are frauding them, and we are frauding the dragon, and we are defrauding the muse. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then buy our freaking book! Likewise, the power of the dragon should be so incomparably immense inside of whatever story you are telling. It is always a dance with death before you even see the dragon. It must be a hassle. And even in victory, there must be immense loss and trauma. Second literary source, Beowulf. You know who Beowulf was? He was the most badass of Viking badasses ever to badass. He beat Grendel, witchy, crazy hag mother that lives underwater, wrestled with sea serpents, and he died at the hands of a dragon. All those cool things. All those crazy things. And then At the end, dragon. Got him. If your PCs are more badass than Beowulf, my question to you is, did they pay the price for said badassery? Did they live through the loss? Such is what happens when we dance with dragons. We must wade through the fire. We must go through their storms. We must breathe in their poisons before we even strike the beast. Hey, Eric Stanix, why didn't you breathe fire when you were fighting Yorm and Gan?
'Cause your low-budget ass couldn't figure out pyrotechnics on a budget!
So, even before your players meet the dragon, they must be imperiled by their element. Then, once they approach the dragon itself, it must have immense strength. The jaws of a crocodile are so strong that they just freaking bite on anything. You see that one video on YouTube? I probably won't link that one, but like the dude, he just puts his arm in because he was one of the workers at the zoo. Chomp! Death roll! Done! Done! The crazy amount of adrenal terror that shot through me while I was watching that video is the same sort of thing that we want to evoke inside of that experience. If you trifle with a dragon, you will lose an arm. It's just how it is. One bite from a dragon should be enough to kill any man. In the real world, this is still true, even though the only true dragons left alive among whatever might have been dragons, anthropologically speaking, is the crocodile and the Komodo dragon. The Komodo dragon is really freaking cool because it has a biological precedent that coincides with the mythological precedent that dragons can breathe poison. Basilisk. Pliny is all like, yeah, if a knight tries to strike a basilisk, even though it's literally just a foot long, its poison will kill the horse and the knight and jump out of his mouth and kill them both in spite of them killing the basilisk. There should be so much loss and so much mayhem dealing with a dragon, before dealing with a dragon, during dealing with a dragon, after dealing with a dragon. There should be loss in all three stages. It has to be catastrophe. Anyways, Komodo dragons. The Komodo dragon has this saliva that bears over 50 different bacteria that work synergistically with each other. One bite from a Komodo dragon will fell basically anything that isn't completely immune to bacteria, which is basically just tardigrades. The cooler thing about this is that because of these coinciding poison tropes in regards to dragons, it also spills over into the mindset of the Komodo dragon. A lot of times, Komodo dragons, while hunting, they will conserve their energy because they're dragons, just like we've been talking about this whole freaking time. And they will bite their prey one time. They will go up to an Indonesian water buffalo. Chomp, chomp! Except -1 chomp. Because they only need one. Because the bacteria will work on the immune system of the said water buffalo. And the damage to the area in which they bite, the blood loss combined with the bacteria, will essentially doom that animal to die within like 3 days. And because the Komodo dragon is a reptile whose metabolism allows them to eat maybe, I don't know, once a month, and then bathe in the sun until they get hungry again, they can wait. And they will wait. They'll just lie there, waiting for the water buffalo to die. And it is from this cruel contentedness that dragons operate inside of melee. Yeah, one bite should be enough. Either due to the strength of the poison or the simple pressure of the jaws. The death grip of a crocodile is crazy. I'll link a couple crocodile videos so you can go watch them and look at what I'm talking about. And I'll denote the one where the dude's hand gets bitten off. You shouldn't watch that unless you're ready to. Bottom line, if you are waging war against a dragon, you should know that you are walking to your doom. The bottom line, dragons do not care about your player character's tragic backstories and their epic dreams and ideals. They don't care that they're these vibrant, heroic protagonists that are well-rounded with flaws and agonies and all of these things. He doesn't care that the story should go a certain way because of an expected social contract between the the narrator and the characters in the role-playing game. He doesn't even care that the muse is rooting for the player's wheel because he's pride incarnate. Hey guys, Future Drew here. Turned out the dragon video became way too freaking long so I'm cutting it in half. You want the next part? Come back next week. For all you knights out there to want to, stab the Satan. We'll have a new video next week, and we're gonna go through a bunch of examples in mythology of how people killed dragons and junk. In the meantime, check out everything in the doobly-doo. We've got links to the final remaining copies of the first print run of our super awesome role-playing game at exaltedfuneral.com. And our actual play podcast is coming out very soon. We'll be uploading VODs eventually. But, stay on the lookout. Click the bell. Subscribe. Like and all that. Peace out.